Hello, good afternoon. Okay, today I'll get straight into it. We're going to talk about body positivity, which I know is a really tricky subject and something that a lot of people really struggle with. And one of the things that just sort of really brought it home for me was quite a while ago now, but I had a client who told me that she never bought nice clothes, and she hadn't done for years because she'd, decided that she didn't want to spend money on dressing a body that she didn't like. And she was basically waiting for a day in her mind, when she reached her ideal weight, she would buy all these lovely clothes that she wanted. But until then, she wasn't prepared to. And she bought things, cheap things, because she didn't want to waste her money. That was how she saw it. And, you can sort of understand the logic there if you've got a weight loss goal. But with this, particular client, she'd been fairly stable actually in her weight for years and years and years. So you imagine that every day getting dressed, hating what you wear, all these clothes being a reminder of the fact that you're not where you want to be, and feeling uncomfortable in your own skin, not liking how you feel in those clothes, wishing you looked like something else, and maybe doing that day in, day out. And, it might not be something that you have to try too hard to imagine, because that may well be how you feel right now, or you can really relate to that. And I think, at our age, we've had kids, operations, a lot of people have been through illness that can affect the weight. There can be lots of reasons, why our weight can creep up. And we feel like, we look at a body that looks very different to what it looked like when we were in our 20s and 30s, and can actually have quite a hard time in actually accepting that and reconciling that, because you see something in a mirror that doesn't feel like who you are inside. And it's actually very common, but quite often with lots of these things, we assume it's just us. We assume it's just we feel like. And I it's one of the things that I find hardest when I speak to clients and lovely women who've got so much about them and, telling me how they feel about themselves. It really can be very upsetting. And it's the truth is that most of us will have some deep insecurity about one part of our body, or maybe more. And the thing is with that, once you decide you hate something about yourself, it's very easy to fuel that feeling and find evidence to prove yourself right, okay? And that could be that you're always comparing yourself against others, or looking, let's say you think you've got fat legs or a fat stomach, you'll always be looking for people who've got a thinner stomach than yours. And that's going to be something that's going to back up your argument that you're worse than everyone else, or that part of you is worse than everyone else's, because you're looking for that. So you're finding that evidence all the time that you do look worse, and that validates your opinions and feeds that hate and reinforces that negativity about yourself. And, at its extreme, when you feel really uncomfortable in your own skin and really self-conscious about yourself, you can feel like that all the time. You can feel like that in public, walking past a mirror or a reflective surface, a window, a car window, whatever it would be. And actually you're in that zone or thinking about those negative things a very high proportion of your time, okay? And, I'm pausing here because one of the things I truly find very difficult about my job is that maybe because of the restrictions of the English language, I have to use the word dieting a lot. Okay, because we understand dieting as as a change in the way we eat to achieve a different goal. And often, what we've been conditioned to think, or what the words become to mean over time, is that eat a certain way for a short period of time to lose weight. Okay, that's what dieting means. And dieting actually being in that mindset can actually make you worse, or make the situation about hating your body worse. And just think of a typical scenario here, let's say you just make a decision to go on a diet because you want to lose weight in time for a holiday next year. And, when you make that decision, sometimes people's moods can really pick up. You feel optimistic, you've got this picture in your mind of how you want to be, you enjoy the planning, you feel motivated, you think you're going to do it this time, you go out and you buy all these things and you plan the meals, etc. Basically put a lot of effort into it. And at the end of the week or 2 weeks or whatever it is, there'll be a point within that where you look in a mirror and you'll look exactly the same. Because even if you had lost a couple of pounds, 2 or 3, you won't look much different to what you look like now, okay, if at all. And what happens then is your focus shifts to where you are now, as in, I'm still in this body that I hate, versus where I want to be, that flat stomach, whatever it is. And instead of congratulating yourself on your progress, you actually then start to feel fed up because you aren't where you want to be. So instead of thinking, okay, this is week 1 out of 12, I'll get there in the end. Great, well done, Gabrielle, keep going. You actually then start to think more negatively, I'm never going to change. I still look like this. I've made all this effort this week and I still look the same. And that goal starts to feel a really long way off. If you've found it hard to stick to a diet or stick to an exercise routine, that can feel hard, you're going to lose faith that you're actually going to be able to keep that up for long enough, and therefore question whether you'll ever reach that goal, and what happens if that's never going to happen for you. That these are thoughts that you're going to have, so your motivation's going to go down, your mood's going to go down, and chances are you'll then give up because you're making all this effort and actually you're creating even more angst for yourself. And this is sadly not an uncommon situation or an uncommon situation with dieting, and how that affects our mood and our mindset and actually reflects negativity back at us. Because I think when we think about dieting, we've got a little perfect body or how we might have looked in our youth, in our mind, and that idea of perfection doesn't really exist. We know ourselves, it's a product of the media, and it's the same, as I said before, when you're sort of looking for evidence of you being worse than everybody else, we can also find evidence that these body ideals do exist. We'll see them in magazines, we'll see them on people on the street who will walk past them and think they've got the legs I've always dreamed of. And, we grew up, we're of a generation where the supermodels were a thing, photoshopping was really heavily used, and we still believe that that's normal. Or even if we know it's not true, we still wish we had legs like Cindy Crawford or whoever your ideal would have been. And it's very hard to let go of that because it's something that a lot of us have been struggling with for decades. I was going to say years, but really by now, and if you've been thinking like that, could have been since in your teens and you started to reach puberty and become more aware of your body. That's a really, really long time of being unsatisfied with who you are and what you look like. And, what happens then is by hating our bodies so much and sort of, fixating on these things, we'll let that ruin our self-confidence. We let it stop us from doing what we want. I've heard of people who won't go out to places where they have to dress up because they don't want to wear those sorts of clothes. They don't want to be on show or in a cocktail dress or whatever it is. So we're actually letting our hatred of our body or our self-consciousness actually put our life on hold. And, we're wasting our lives because we're so embarrassed or unhappy with what we look like. And how long ago? Maybe 8 years. Tim and I went to, had a night in a hotel in Manchester. And we booked a dinner in a room. And I can't remember much about the evening because it's like I say, it's 8 years ago. But what I can remember, and I've never forgot, there was this very big girl in the restaurant who was absolutely mesmerising. She must have been about 5'10". Just to give you an idea of size, she must have been 20 stone. She was a really big girl. She had this magnificent wild haircut, full makeup. She had this polka dot dress that sort of cinched in at the waist and had almost like a tutu skirt on the bottom that was short. So, you know, I can't remember her feet, what she had on, maybe high heels, but there was nothing hiding her body in any way. Very low cut, huge chest, fantastic cleavage. And she just absolutely just stole the whole evening. She was full of confidence. She was having a riot of a time with the guy who she was with, who probably couldn't believe his luck. She was flirting with the waiter. You know, she was so mesmerising and full of confidence that she actually really dominated our evening. And we actually spent more time of this romantic meal looking at this girl and talking about her in a very nice way, because we were just really sort of enjoying this sort of spectacle of this woman who was just larger than life in many, many ways. And she was without a doubt the most attention-grabbing and attractive-looking woman in the room. And, you know, her head was held high, she had fantastic posture, she was smiling, she looked comfortable in her own skin. And I'll never forget that, because that was something that just shows you that attractiveness comes from confidence. It doesn't, you know, in terms of how people think about other people that you know that you find attractive, and chances are it's not just because they've got a perfect body. Maybe, do you know anyone with a perfect body? I know I don't. But people who you find attractive have self-confidence, they've got good posture, they've got nice smiling faces, they're interested in you when you talk to them. There's lots and lots of things that we do, and you know that we can attribute to attractiveness, and we see that and we look for that and we respond to that in other people. But we don't. We judge ourselves, or we have different rules for ourselves. And ironically, when you feel physically unattractive, or you've just decided that the only thing that measures your own personal attractiveness is your physical attributes, quite often we adopt the opposite: unattractive postures, low self-confidence, sort of dour expressions on our face, looking uncomfortable or shifty or awkward. And it then becomes our body language, actually, that makes us less attractive rather than our physical attributes. Okay. And, you know, if you've ever been on holiday recently, or sat around a pool, or been on a beach where people are in a sauna, a swimming pool, even a gym, you can't deny the fact that there are all shapes and sizes of people around, you know, but you know that already. And it's just very interesting to see how diverse bodies really are, okay? And I think one of the things that I think it's just worth saying is maybe what is dieting, what is body positivity, I mean, and how does dieting and body positivity work? Because I think that is quite a strange thing, because on one hand, you know, we're hearing people say we should accept how we are, and that dieting culture is dreadful and it's forcing people to conform. And then we also have a population of people who hear all this, like the sound of it, but still really deeply struggle with themselves and how they are, okay? And how do you reconcile all of those things? I think it's helpful in that sense just to maybe break this down a little bit, because firstly, how would we define what body positivity actually is? Well, really, I would suggest that it's about accepting, first and foremost, that normal bodies come in all shapes and sizes. And also trying to believe, I say try to, because I know it's not something that just you can switch on, believing that all bodies are beautiful, and letting go of all these idealised beauty standards that we've been fed for years through the media. You know, it doesn't take a lot to have a look online, and the name of the place completely escapes me now, but there's a certain island somewhere where the fatter you are, the more body fat you have, the more beautiful you are, because that's a sign of wealth or fertility. And women actually eat more, and men want women who eat more to get bigger, because that's seen as more attractive. So beauty standards tend to be very cultural. Okay, again, we probably know this, but it's, you know, it's worth remembering, and that's part of what the whole body positivity movement is. It's about believing there's beauty in everything. But I would maybe go a little bit further than that. That the beauty, as I said before about the girl in the bar, beauty is not just about physical attributes, is it? It's about the feeling, or the, I don't know, the sort of confidence or what you radiate as a person. Okay. So the next question would be, okay, so we're sort of understanding broadly what body positivity is. So does that mean that if you're on a diet, you don't like your body? Well, I can't answer that for everybody, and I think it very much depends on what the definition of diet is. But I would say, if I had to be put on the spot and answer that question, that yes, I think that's often going to be the case, that if you are on a diet, you aren't happy or aren't comfortable in your body as it is now. Okay? So then, next question would be, if you want to let go of all that and you want to learn how to love and accept your body, then does that mean you can't go on a diet? Does that mean you have to just eat what you want and not care anymore? Because that's a very difficult question for people to answer, or scenario for people to face. Because, again, you know, in this time of our lives, 20 years, 30 years, many women have felt that we have to be on a diet. And when you take away that idea of being on a diet, it actually can feel quite frightening, because you don't know what's going to happen, and you fear losing control of your eating and your body and end up being worse, in a worse situation than you are now. So that's a very difficult thing to think about. Okay. And this has come from what dieting has become to mean, okay, or evolved to mean, because traditional dieting simplifies the effects of food. Food is equal to calories, and the more or less calories that you eat means that you're fatter or thinner. End of story. That's all we think about. That's all we think about food. And exercise is often the same as well. So if you exercise, you burn calories, which makes you thinner. If you're lazy or you're not active and you don't have time or don't have the inclination, then that means you're not going to burn those calories, therefore you're going to store them, and that makes you fatter. Okay, so we've reduced the idea of food and exercise to something that does or doesn't make you fatter or thinner. Whereas in reality, our food is not that linear. And as adults, and as women especially, our relationships with food aren't that simple either. We have in fact got really complicated relationships with food. And I think at this point it's interesting to ask or think about how we become overweight. And there are, you know, in truth, lots of reasons. Pregnancy, you know, some people can still be holding on to weight that they keep after multiple pregnancies that can stay with them for life. Illness, I know a lot of people who've had quite serious illnesses, and that's been a trigger for weight gain. That's very hard to actually explain why. Whether it's stress, whether it's affected the health conditions or the medication or the recuperation period and having to be inactive. But illness can be something where a trigger for a big weight gain. As I say, certain medications can affect weight. So can your lifestyle or inactivity usually. You know, if you have a very sedentary job, or or mobility issues. Sorry, just trying to sort of broaden that out. You know, can be very good reasons. I didn't want to think about not being active as a lazy thing. That there can be real restrictions on people's lifestyles that can affect how active they can or can't be, and that can be part of the reason why people become overweight. A really common one is having an unhealthy relationship with food. We use food to soothe ourselves, to sort of cope with emotions, or we can just create bad habits through not having enough time, or our kids or our families wanting to eat in a certain way, and we end up sort of, the quality of our food degrades over time. There is lack of education. There are good sections of the population who wouldn't understand enough about nutrition, and therefore aren't aware that the way they're eating is giving them more calories than they need and contributing to a weight problem. And then also, again, in certain countries and certain areas, there is poverty and lack of access to nutrient-dense foods. Because if you live somewhere where you're having to rely on processed food, that's known to cause obesity. It's not to do with the calories, it's to do with the fact that the food is so nutrient poor. Okay, so there's lots of reasons that people can become overweight. It's very complicated. But if you think about it, that excess weight is, if you flip it on its head, excess weight is a byproduct of all of those conditions. Okay, and really, it's not just about food and how much we eat. It's about these things or these events that have happened in our lives or our lifestyles that have culminated in a weight change. Okay, and that's really important to think about it like that, rather than just look at the weight being the problem. The weight's actually a byproduct of something else. And this is why it's so important, and this is why I think it's right when we start to think about rejecting the idea of popular diet culture, because it's really important to see if we can change the way we think about food. Stop thinking about calories. Food is more than just calories. Stop thinking about exercise as something that burns calories. Letting go of dieting culture means realising and accepting the fact that what we eat and how we move have a bigger impact on us and our bodies, our well-being, than just how fat or thin we are, how much body fat we do or don't have. And we have to stop reducing the two really crucial things to something that can be measured in calories, okay? Because food, or more importantly, nutrition, because food is only protein, vitamins, minerals, healthy fats, nutrition has the power to change how you feel. Not just your weight, it has the power to change energy, your mood, your digestion, your concentration levels. Exercise is well known to improve your mental health, to help you sleep better. It has a lot of physical benefits as well, improving your heart strength, your lung capacity, your circulation, whole range of things. And when you start to think about food and exercise as that, then you start to break free from that dieting culture and start to notice how these things make you feel better in different ways. Because what you've got to also let go of is the obsession that you're always looking for change in your physicality. Okay, that's something that you have to let go. Because when you start to shift your attention away from obsessed with what you look like, what you eat, how many calories you're burning off, you then tap into a different set of benefits from food and exercise, and a different way of thinking about your body that can give you a lot of positive things, and then actually start weight loss as being a byproduct or a side effect of that. Okay. And what this means is you have to let go of the diet, punishment, restriction, sort of withholding things from yourself to make yourself smaller, and start to tune into your body and what it needs, and start to pay attention to that. Because no one ever feels good on a diet, not for long. Okay, no one ever feels good for flogging themselves to death in the gym, not for long. Okay, you have to tune into your body and what it needs, and think about exercise and how it makes you feel good. Going for a walk can clear your head. It can help get rid of stress. It can really just lift your mood. It doesn't matter how many calories it's burnt. You'll never know anyway. You'll never know exactly what it's burnt, because it doesn't work like that. It's very hard to quantify. You need to start thinking about food as something that nourishes you. You have a need for certain nutrition in your body. Your body functions, it renews itself based on what you eat. Okay, you're giving your body the raw materials it needs to function well. And when you start to think about how important you are and value yourself as an individual and a person who deserves to feel good and be looked after and cared for, then you start to think about food and exercise in a completely different way. Okay, and you're not holding things back from yourself, you're giving yourself things that you really need. And that starts to become really powerful. Part of that process then is recognising your food, your sort of negative food patterns. And the main one for that, I think, mostly, is learning how to deal with your emotions in a healthier way than using food and alcohol as a distraction technique, because that's often what's the problem. We're not, if you eat too much, sorry, I'll go back again. When I look at a client who's overweight and try and find out what the problem might be, it could be that they're eating for emotional reasons, or they're not making time for themselves to make proper food. And the fact that they're then gaining weight is a side effect of some neglect somewhere else. Okay. And so you want to learn how to give yourself what you need, how to deal with your emotions, how to prioritize giving yourself 3 good square meals every day, And tuning into yourself also allows you to understand how to rest or slow down when you need to. And we think that we have to be able to go 100 miles an hour all the time, and we have to always feel great, and we have to always feel energetic, and we always have to feel like on our best day. But in reality, our mood, our energy levels sort of wax and wane, and we have to allow that to happen. And this is where, particularly with exercise, people can feel that they have to exercise a certain number of times a week and push through when they really should be resting and not doing anything. And just because you rest today, because you're tired, or you sort of feel a little bit low and you feel that's what your body needs, doesn't mean you've fallen off the exercise wagon. It just means today's a rest day, and your body needs to rest and recover more than it needs to run around. And that's absolutely fine. So you're starting to trust yourself, to get in touch with what you need and do things that make you feel better. And that's how you measure or evaluate what you're eating and what your exercise is, because of how it makes you feel. And when I take clients through a process of this, and anyone can do it, you don't need to sort of work with someone to do it, but they find that they then notice that certain foods make them feel better. They naturally want to go out and exercise because they feel good. They don't feel that they need sort of treat foods or alcohol as much, because they know that's not what they need, and they naturally start to find that the notion of food starts to take up less space in their brain, and they start to notice other benefits from eating and exercising and resting properly over and above just weight that start to actually become more important to them. Weight comes off for sure, yeah, but then they notice that the skin looks better, or the mood's changed, or their digestion's better, the bloating's gone. These are things that then they start to notice that really makes them realise how important it is to prioritise themselves and listen to themselves. Okay. Another thing, so that's food and exercise, that's one thing. Another key thing to do, because this is about body positivity as well, going back to the first thing that I talked about, is lose this idea that you can't look nice or do anything nice for yourself until you get to that goal weight. Start now. Again, another client I had recently was, before she'd even started working with me, so this was nothing to do with this, had gone and bought herself a whole new wardrobe, because she just thought, I am so fed up of waiting until I look a different way. I'm going to go and buy all those things for myself now. And she did. And that was a huge mood changer. And that's really true. That won't be a waste of money. You will feel better every single day when you look well put together, when you've got nice clothes on that make you feel good. If you make an effort with your hair, your nails, your skincare, your grooming. All of those things are kind things that you can do to yourself that make you feel better about yourself. And that can sometimes be the thing that can stimulate the change in other areas of your life, because you do these little things for yourself to make yourself feel better. And then suddenly your motivations come back again. You feel good about yourself. And then you think, no, I don't want to collapse on the sofa with a bag of crisps for my tea or a bowl of cereal. I'm going to go and make myself something that I really enjoy, a nice piece of fish, some vegetables, whatever it would be for you. And I'm going to do that and have a lovely meal that I'm going to enjoy. That's what happens. You start to look after yourself in different ways, and the other things start to follow through. Walk tall, have your head held high. If I'm ever sort of feeling a bit lackluster, I think of this girl. And, you know, it does change how you feel, say how people see you. I'm not really bothered about that. And I'll never know anyway, but it changes how you feel if you walk tall into a room, okay? So it's all about turning things around, okay? And you want to think about what are the small things that you can do that will make you feel better about yourself. You know, the reality of it is changing your perception of your body and learning to love yourself and accept it and like it can take some people a long time. Okay, I'm not going to dress that up or suggest that it's a really easy thing to do. But starting to do small things for yourself can actually become real breakthrough moments, because you suddenly see that you do have some power and you do have some control to make yourself feel better, to make yourself like yourself more, okay? To even switch off that brain and that self-hate all the time, because you start to think more about what nice thing can I do for myself than trying to sort of be constantly preoccupied with how bad you look, okay? So that's what I want to leave you with here today. I have gone over my 30-minute rule on that. Time flies when you're chatting away. But that's what I want to leave you with. What small things can you do that will make you feel better? And just investing a little bit of time in yourself every day to pay attention to yourself, to figure out what you need, to give yourself some care and attention, and do things that are going to make you feel better. It might not change everything at the beginning, but do it for a few days and a few nice things and some small things, and you will then start to notice a difference. And that's what you're looking for. Just how those little things can start to build up and accumulate and change the way you feel. Then the penny will drop and you'll start to realise that there's a lot more that you can do to change that relationship that you have with your body and reframe the way you live your life. The food you eat, the rest you get, the exercise you get, the way you put yourself together can all start to have a huge impact. Okay. So I hope that's given you something to think about today. I'd love to hear what you think about that. And if you've got any other questions, have a great day and I'll see you again next week.